Hey guys, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm gonna be filming my September wrap-up. Can you believe that it's the end of September? Like, September went by so incredibly fast in my opinion. We are here, dude. It's my favorite time of the year. I love October so freaking much. Wake me up when September ends. It's over, bitch. Sorry, I have a lot of energy right now. I just got off of a really long day at work and I'm filming this video around like midnight right now. Apparently this is my new thing for wrap-ups. We film at midnight for these. Alright, let's get to the shit that you care about. So in the month of September, I read 11 books. I finally got out of that reading slump that I thought was gonna kill me, and I ended up reading 3,700 pages exactly this month, which is strange. As far as genres go that I was reading this month, I read a total of 4 contemporaries. Even though I didn't participate in Contemporary-a-thon, apparently I was just in a contemporary mood this September. I also read 3 nonfiction, which is also strange for me because I never read nonfiction, but apparently that was the mood this month. And then I read 2 thrillers and 2 romances, which is my usual shit. And then as far as ratings go this month, I had 0 5 stars this month, which is like, I didn't find any new favorites. And then I had 7 4-star books. And then I had 2 3 stars, 1 2 star, and 1 1 star. The ratings were on the higher end this month, but I didn't find any new all-time favorite books, but I was enjoying most of the stuff that I was reading, so I mean, that's good. And then I read 2 male authors and 10 female authors, and the reason why that doesn't add up to 11 is because one of them was a collection that had male and female authors. And then checking in on my goals for the year, I did actually read one of my Book of the Month selections for the month of September. And then I did not complete my reread goal of The Simple Wild. Ugh. Let's get to all the books I read this month. The very first book that I read this month was The Arrangement by Robyn Harding. This was actually my buddy read that I did with my BFF Jacqueline, and we actually did an Instagram live show for this book on my Instagram. So if you're not following me on my Instagram, then you need to follow me on my Instagram so that you can see the next live show, because we're planning on doing them like once a month now. This book is an adult thriller, and it follows this girl named Natalie who's living in New York City, but she's from Blaine, Washington, which is like really close to where I live, so it's like super weird. And she is living in New York City as a college student, and she gets a sugar daddy and becomes a sugar baby, and she does it because she's in a very desperate financial situation, and then things start to turn sinister kind of with her sugar daddy, and it's a thriller. This book, while I didn't super enjoy it, it definitely got me out of my reading slump, so like I will give it that. Like, it was a very entertaining read, but the main character in this book kind of drove me fucking crazy, and I feel like this was such a cool concept for a thriller, like about a girl getting a sugar daddy, but I feel like the thrilling aspects of this book weren't even really about the sugar daddy scenario. Like, I don't know, it just didn't really go where I was expecting it to, and I felt like this had a lot more potential. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Like, it was still really good, like it held my attention, like I was invested in this story, but then I just felt very like underwhelmed by the end, and I just thought it could have been a lot better. The second book I read this month was Not the Girl You Marry by Andie J. Christopher, and thank you so much to Berkeley Romance for sending me an ARC of this book. This one goes on sale November 12th. It's actually one of my most anticipated books of the year. Like, I was extremely excited to receive this in the mail. This one is a How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days retelling for like the modern age. I'm very sad to say, but this was my 1-star book for this month. It was actually a DNF as well. I only got halfway through it and then I was like, nope. Oh my gosh, you guys, this book was freaking atrocious. Like, these characters had absolutely no chemistry. I really hate too in romance novels where the characters just come on like very strong and they're just very like vulgar and like sexual with each other like right away. Like, I really love a slow burn romance, you know? Like, I want them to build chemistry before they're just so blunt, you know? Like, this girl is like, you also walk like you have a big dick. What the fuck? And like page 23, oh my god, he starts to call her Duchess, and like, oh my gosh, it's just so extra. Oh my god, these characters are so annoying. This book was just overly sexual, and it was written in such a strange way. Like, I couldn't connect with these characters like at all. And it sucks because I really wanted to love this, especially because it has a biracial female lead character. It just sounded like everything I wanted, and it made me realize how problematic How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is. But this doesn't even come close to the movie. Like, the movie is freaking sensational. This is, would not recommend. It was one of my only 1 stars this year. Like, I couldn't find any redeeming qualities about this. Third book that I read this month is Where the Forest Meets the Stars by Glendy, vanderah. This was actually an interesting story because I only discovered this book because one of my subscribers just like commented on a video and said that they thought I would really like it, and they compared it to The Humans, and I had never even heard of this book, so I instantly searched it on Amazon and like purchased it that day, and then I read it as soon as I got it because I was just so excited about it. And like that's so rare for that to happen to me, to like see something online, like for somebody to recommend me something that I am like super interested in and I need to read it immediately. It's basically about this girl who is dealing with the loss of her mother recently, and she's also battling her own breast cancer. So she's recently lost her mom to cancer. She also has cancer. And then she sees this little girl on her property who's claiming to be an alien, and she's saying that she needs to experience 5 miracles before she can go back to her planet. So this one also features like a very slow burn romance in this. And this book also deals with mental illness and depression in a very like sensitive way that I thought was very well done. And it just shows that like mental illness and depression isn't something that can be cured like overnight, which I really appreciate. This book was really freaking beautiful. Like it was a really freaking beautiful story. And one of my favorite things in books is contemporary stories that have a bit of a sci-fi element to them or a bit of a sci-fi feel. So this was definitely that for me, which I freaking loved, and I just like fell in love with these characters, honestly. Like it was just so beautiful. And even though I wasn't like 100% like shipping this romance so hard, like the romance of this book was okay to me. I was honestly more invested in the little girl character. Like Ursa's character, like the little girl, she reminded me so much of Eleven from Stranger Things or something. Like she was just so cute and innocent, but also so smart, and she just has this like mysteriousness about her that I just really found her character so fascinating. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, and the only reason why I didn't get 5 stars from me is because I feel like the ending just kind of lost its momentum a little bit. Like it got a little predictable towards the end, and I was just kind of like losing interest. Like I was just waiting for the story to end. Then the very ending was redeeming. Like it was worth all of that kind of like slower part. I still think that this is a 4-star book for me because I don't know if I would consider this book like an all-time favorite, but it was still really good. Like I really enjoyed this. The 4th book that I picked up this month is Water Runs Red by Jenna Clare. This is actually a collection of poetry, and Jenna Clare is actually another booktuber, so I will have to link her channel down below. But I've been watching her on booktube for quite some time now, and I was just really interested in reading some more poetry this month, so I went ahead and got this one, and the inside is just so beautiful because she's also a photographer, so she included a lot of like her photography in this as well as like little poetry bits. This book is really great because it talks about a lot of things that I feel like aren't really talked about often in poetry or books, and that's about how like friendships can break your heart just as much as relationships can break your heart. And this book talks about like asexuality. It talks a lot about like depression and mental health as well, and like the 2016 election and ignorant old white men. It's just something that I related to a lot actually. And it just covers a lot of things that I just think aren't really talked about often in fiction or nonfiction, and like how intense high school friendships can be, or even any like friendships in your life, like even outside of high school, and how when those friendships come to an end, it can be just as painful as like a relationship coming to an end. Like that heartbreak can be one and the same. And I feel like this book really talks about that in a really beautiful way and kind of made me see my own friendships differently, or at least like the ones that have ended. Like it made me feel more validated in the way that I felt, I guess. This was just really great. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars as well. The 5th book I picked up this month was 3 Women by Lisa Taddeo. I actually listened to the audiobook for this one, and this is another nonfiction. I don't know what was going on this month, but I was just like in the mood for some nonfiction, I guess. I really like listening to nonfiction when it's an audiobook. It's kind of hard to explain what it's about, but like Lisa Taddeo did this study on all of these different American women and their sex lives and their desires, and then she chose 3 women that she thought had like the most interesting sexual stories, like backgrounds and stuff, and she decided to tell their story through this book. But what I really like about this book is that it feels like it's fiction. Like it reads like it's fiction because you're reading from the point of view of these 3 different women. And so it's kind of cool how she's able to do that. My personal favorite girl to read from was Maggie, because she was involved in like a student-teacher relationship when she was in high school, and it was just very hard to read at times, but it was also like the most interesting to me out of all the 3 different women. But I don't know, like, I know this book is getting some, like, controversy right now, but I just found this book to be very fascinating. And for that reason alone, I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars because I just had a really great time listening to this. Like, it was very, like, eye-opening for me, I think. I think it might be a little misleading to say that this book is about women's sexual desire and everything because I feel like it's about so much more than that. The next book I picked up this month is If Only I Could Tell You by Hannah Beckerman. This was actually one of my Book of the Month selections for the month of September, and this was also the first book I read during my Reading After 10 video that I did this month, so I'll link that down below if you missed it. But this book is a contemporary story about this family. It's getting a lot of comparison to This Is Us, which I think is totally valid. And This Is Us is one of my favorite shows of all time, so as soon as I saw those comparisons, I was like, I need to read this book now. This book basically follows this mom who is dealing with her 2 grown adult daughters who are no longer speaking to each other, and it's because of something that happened in their childhood that they're no longer speaking to each other. And so throughout this book, you're kind of trying to figure out like what it was that happened in their childhood that made them like no longer speak to each other. This book is just so freaking powerful to me. Like, it was so beautiful. This book definitely made me cry, and it definitely has trigger warnings for pretty much everything that you can think of, like suicide, depression, serious illness, and just pretty much like anything you can imagine. Like, this was a very heavy, depressing book and probably one of the saddest books that I think I've ever read. I also felt like I just connected to it so much because of the whole sister situation. Like, I just could never imagine being in that scenario with my own sister, and I just really love books in general that follow like mother-daughter relationships and like sister-sister relationships. So wow, this book was freaking powerful, and I love that it had so many plot twists in the writing that I didn't see coming, and it made this book so much more enjoyable for me. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars as well. Alright, so the next book I read this month is Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. I got a freaking arc of this and I was not expecting it at all, so thank you so much to Montlake Romance for sending me an arc. This book comes out December 10th and it's the latest from Colleen Hoover, one of my favorite authors. This one's like young adult / adult. Like, I don't really know where the age is for this book, but we follow from the point of view of a teenage girl and an adult woman who are mother and daughter. And so it's going back and forth in alternate chapters from their 2 perspectives. Honestly, I feel like this book is best if you just jump in knowing absolutely nothing. Like, I would go in, like, don't even read the description of it. Like, all you need to know is that it's a mother-daughter relationship book. It's like, it's really like about the mother and daughter and their relationship, and there's also romance involved in the story as well, but it's really like a coming of age, beautiful contemporary romance story. I literally had no idea what this book was going to be about going in. Like, I just jumped in completely blind. I was so surprised. Like, every chapter something would happen and I'd be like, wait, what? And I'd like have to like rethink everything I thought I knew. I just really enjoyed this book. Like, it was so good, and I ended up giving this one a 4.5 like right after I initially read it, but then thinking back on it a little bit more, I think I would change it to like maybe a 4 out of 5, not to be like picky or anything. But like, I think the main reason why it's not a 5 for me is because I wasn't a huge fan of the young adult romance in this book. Like, I usually never am for some reason, but I was a major fan of the adult romance that was happening in this book. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend checking it out still when this one comes out, because oh my gosh, dude, this one also hit me in the fucking feels, and it was very sad as well. Like, this is another one of those Colleen Hoover books that's gonna make you cry your eyes out. The next book I read this month is Lost You by Haylen Beck. This one is another thriller, and this one is about this woman who goes on this vacation with her like 3-year-old son. While she's on this vacation, the little boy like goes running towards the elevator and the door's like shut before she can get to him, and then he like disappears and they can't find him, and then he's found with this other woman who's claiming to be his mother. We're on this like crazy journey of trying to figure out like who is the actual mother and who this other woman is, and like what the fuck is going on. I was really excited about this book because it has one of the best first chapters, I think, of a thriller that I've ever read. But after the first chapter, this book definitely like lost my interest. Like, I was able to read this book pretty quickly because it just has that like quick read to it, like you're just trying to figure out what's going on. And I will give it that it definitely like held my attention until the end, so that's a good sign to me. But at the same time, like this thriller didn't really do anything for me. Like it didn't bring anything new to the table as far as thrillers go. I thought it was very predictable, and it just went off in a direction that I was like not thinking it would, I guess. So I guess it's not predictable in that sense, but it was like the story just went somewhere where I was not thinking it would go, and like not in a good way. Like it really made me like lose interest in the story. I don't know. I mean, I still finished it, so I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars, but this is not something that I would recommend. All right, the next book I read this month was Hate Notes by Vi Keeland and Penelope Ward. I finally freaking read this book. Like I've been wanting to read this book since Romanceathon, and this one is a new adult romance novel, or maybe it's adult, I don't really know. Oh my gosh, dude, this one started off so good, and then I just like lost interest after the halfway point, and it just started getting really bad. But like the beginning of this was so good. So it follows this girl. She recently got dumped by her fiance, so she's going to like return the wedding dress, and she finds this other wedding dress with like a note in it that's like the most beautiful romantic thing she's ever seen. So of course, naturally, she like Googles this guy that like left the note, and she finds him, and he's like a real estate agent for this like super rich company. And so she schedules a showing to go and see a house that this guy's showing, and it's like $1 million house or something, and he can tell right away that it was like a setup, that she's not actually there for the right reasons. And then she ends up getting hired for his company, not knowing that it's his company, and she's like an assistant for them, like a personal assistant for them. And then we get this really cute bantery office romance that's kind of like hate to love, and it was like so good in the beginning, but then oh god, after we get to like 100 pages in, this story just started to drag so much. It started to become so much about like their office and like their job and their work. I don't know, it just wasn't as fun as the beginning of this. Like the beginning was so good, and it was making me like so happy and giddy, and I was like, oh my god, it's a new favorite of mine. And then like it just like really lost it for some reason towards the end, and then the end of it was like such cheesiness. Like I was like, come on, dude. So I don't know, I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars, and I don't think this is something I would necessarily recommend because the ending just really dropped the ball, unfortunately. All right, the next thing I read this month is Modern Love, which is edited by Daniel Jones, and this is actually a short story collection, which is also nonfiction. This is the 3rd nonfiction thing I read this month. It's just wild. This is true stories of love, loss, and redemption. This is based off of a podcast that's like super successful, so if it sounds somewhat familiar, that's probably why. Really, really enjoyed this. It's so fascinating to me, like it's kind of just like getting a glimpse into somebody's life, you know, because these are all very like short stories about people's first experience with love, or their first experience with loss of that love, or like dealing with grief. It just had so many like relatable moments in this book, but also just so many like fascinating stories. My favorite story though in this entire collection is the one called The Race Grows Sweeter Near Its Final Lap, because it's about these like really elderly people like finding love, and they only experience it for a few years, but it was like the highlight of their whole life, and it was like so freaking cute. Oh, one of my other favorite stories in this is You May Want to Marry My Husband, and it's like about this girl who's like dying of cancer, and she's writing it to like his future wife, like saying, you might want to marry my husband because he's so great. There was this one called Now I Need a Place to Hide Away. Oh my god, dude. It was about a mom like losing her child, and it fucking hit me like on another level. Like that was fucking sad. I also really liked the story My Husband Is Now My Wife, and the one First I Met My Children, Then My Girlfriend, They're Related. That one is also very interesting. There's just so many good stories in this, and I feel like yeah, there were definitely some that were like totally forgettable or totally boring, but I feel like most of these were actually very interesting, and I just really enjoyed myself while reading this because like, yeah, I do like reading romance, and this was like a true little stories about like real people's lives and romance, and it was just very entertaining and very like cute and fascinating to read. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars as well. Really enjoyed it. Like I highly recommend checking it out if it sounds at all interesting to you. All right, and the very last book that I read this month was Summer Bird Blue by Akemi Dawn Bowman. This one is actually a young adult contemporary novel. So it follows this girl named Rumi, and her younger sister Leah dies in a car accident with her, like when she's in the car. It's about her kind of dealing with her grief and like it's like a coming of age story for her. But she lives in Washington, which is like insane because I also live in Washington, and her sister is her best friend, which is crazy because my sister is also my best friend. And this character is asexual. So I feel like this character was one of the most relatable characters of all time for me. Not only that, but she also loves songwriting, which I absolutely loved songwriting when I was in high school. And she was writing this song called Summer Bird Blue when her sister died. So it's like her life's goal to finish the song that she was writing with her sister. Things take a turn for the worse in her summer when, after her sister dies, her mom ships her off to Hawaii to be with this long lost family that she didn't know that she had, because her mom needs time to grieve alone, like she can't deal with it. So she has to spend the entire summer in Hawaii with these people that she doesn't really know, and she's dealing with the loss of her sister. Like, it's a very, very sad and depressing book. And I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. And the only reason why it didn't get 5 stars for me is because I do feel like the writing got a little bit repetitive. Like, it was really beating you over the head with her grief. Like, it was fucking sad, and it was very repetitive. Like, over and over and over again, she'd just be like, I don't deserve to live. Why wasn't it me instead of my sister? I don't deserve to be happy without her. Like, very, very repetitive like that. And it just got to be a lot. Also, the writing style kind of bothered me because it would just randomly throw in a memory, like, in the middle of the writing, and it would literally just cut off and just say, like, a memory, and then like start a memory. Writing itself kind of like bothered me at times, but like, God, dude, Rumi is like one of the most relatable characters for me ever. Some parts of this, like when she's talking about her sister and she says, I don't think I'll ever find another person in the entire world who understands me the way Leah does. We're the only 2 people in the universe who speak our language. And like, I just love that so much because I feel like the same way with my sister. Like, whenever we're playing like a game, we can just like look at each other and like know what the other person's thinking without even saying anything. And so I feel like that's why this book cut extra deep to even like imagine losing that person. She says, I feel like the world is shouting at me to make decisions that I'm not ready for. What if I never figure it out? What if I get to college and it takes me 6 years to pick a major, and 3 years after that I change my mind and have to start all over again? What if I think I don't want kids, and then when I'm 50 I think I made a mistake but it's too late? And then I love this bit too, and she says, I hate that I can't make up my mind. I hate that understanding myself isn't as simple as doing a Google search on what I'm feeling. I hate that one moment I think I know who I am, and then the next moment I'm second guessing myself and feeling like a fraud. Knowing myself should be the easiest thing I do in life, but somehow it feels like the hardest. I just love that so much. And like, Rumi is like, oh my God, such a relatable character for me. Like, not only because of those lines, but also because of her lines about like asexuality and trying to figure out like who you are and what your sexuality is. Oh my gosh. And then the ending of this book just really emotionally gutted me. So yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Like, if it wasn't for the weird choppy writing at some parts and the repetitiveness, I really feel like this would have been a 5-star book for me. Gosh, dude, I read 3 books this month that were like so depressing and so sad, and they all dealt with like mother-daughter relationships, and they also all dealt with like death and like serious illness or something. Like, it was just sad. Like, I was depressed. I definitely think though, like, some of the favorites for me this month, the books that are gonna stick with me the most, are definitely gonna be Where the Forest Meets the Stars. Modern Love was very fun. Really loved If Only I Could Tell You. Summer Bird Blue was freaking amazing. And Regretting You. Like, I had a lot of books that could have been 5 stars. Like, I'm just very picky with my ratings. But like, these books were all fantastic, and I highly recommend all of them. It's a very sad reading month, so I'm honestly so ready for October. Like, bring on the spookiness, the horror books, the thrillers. Like, I'm so ready for it because I feel like these last couple of books that I've been reading have all been like very sad, depressing books, and I'm just like, done. That is all that I read this month. Please let me know, how many books did you read in September? What was the best book that you read in September? What was the worst book that you read in September? And what are your reading plans for October? Very soon after this, I will be uploading my October TBR and all of my reading plans for October. I'm very excited. I think I'm participating in 2 readathons next month. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, of course, if you read any of these books. And thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys soon with a new video.